Grace, what do you want to do? And later, tell everybody what you did with your breasts.
You know the little curling irons? My mom had some of those, and I just remember heating up one of those real hot and just taking it to the chest.
So everybody pretty much thinks that you're born either male or female, but there is a whole nother gender called intersex. It's when you have both sexual characteristics. 1 out of every 2,000 babies is born intersex. And as I said earlier, 1 out of 2,000 people are redheads. So if you've met a redhead before, which I'm sure you've met many or seen many, you have seen or met many people that are intersex. Some parents choose to correct their child surgically at birth and decide at birth if they want their child to be a male or a female. I'm with Hida now. Her parents did not do that. So when you were in your 20s, you lived as a man.
Yeah.
What was your name?
I kept my name because it's, you know, it's unusual enough that it didn't make people ask. And it kind of happened inadvertently. Like, what it was is I just sort of got sick of doing the girly things. I date women predominantly, and I was having all these men hit on me all the time, or, you know, and I just thought, why am I even doing this? You know, why am I tweezing and waxing and all this stuff? And when I stopped doing it all,
you're like a pretty man, like a handsome man.
Thank you.
What we would call fine, right? Yeah.
So I thought people would just finally think I was a lesbian, you know, because I didn't look like a typical lesbian before. And instead, everyone started calling me he and sir. And then I thought, I was really fascinated. And I thought, well, let me just go for it.
I hear that your friends and mom, did they?
Yeah, people wouldn't recognize me. Like my mom, my friends of decades, just like walk right by me and thought I was like somebody's boyfriend or something. Yeah, and so it's interesting, right? Like because I am kind of naturally androgynous, I can really take it either way. Yeah. But ultimately, I decided that was kind of like putting myself into a whole other box, you know, like I really feel both masculine and feminine in my personality.
What are you most attracted to? Women or men?
Oh, definitely women.
Definitely
since I was
women.
Little, like since I was 5, I can remember like always. So.
Attracted to women. And what type of women are attracted to you?
All types. A lot of, like, it's usually been, actually, it's interesting, a lot of my girlfriends have been straight or like priorly straight or just like a little bi. Like most of them are married with kids now. And if I'm looking like during that time where I looked really boyish, then it was like all like the lipstick lesbians, the femmes. But then otherwise it's kind of across the board, like, yeah, it's a little bit across the board. Yeah.
It's interesting. So the heterosexual women are attracted to you, and you'll date them. Yeah. And then the penetration thing, they're like, well, it's kind of like a guy too, but a woman.
Yeah, I had one girl say that.
So I know that you said with dating, there's like a favorite response. What do people say?
Yeah, well, you know, in the beginning, before I'd read this article and found out the word for what I was, I didn't even really know what to tell people. So it just kind of emerged when we were finally sexual, and there was like this surprised kind of positive reaction, which I thought was really...
There's never been one guy when you were just saying female that was like, oh, gosh.
There was one guy actually once. And, you know, because I don't date, like I never fall in love with men, like it's like it doesn't matter to me as much, so it's easier. But there's this one guy, and it just kind of happened real quick where there's no build-up, you know? And I was like, no, they come in all shapes and sizes, blah, 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 blah. And so I didn't know, like, if I knew about intersex at that time, I would have explained more. But in the end, what I said was pretty accurate, because I mean, the truth is, clitorises do come in
all shapes and sizes.
So, like, you know, it's really good all around. And when you think about it, I mean, clitorectomies were outlawed, right? Like in certain cultures where they were performed, and it was this thing about taking away women's right to pleasure. Well, here they outlawed clitorectomies, but they have in America. But there's an exception where it's allowed in cases. It says except in cases of ambiguous genitalia. So they actually say in the law that you can still do it if it's someone like me. And so I
have a feeling if your clitoris was gone, you would not be as happy. You should be happy and like, just like,
that's what I feel like. Yeah. Well, so that's it. Yeah. So it's a pleasure organ, and so having more of it is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Now I have to ask you about like how should people address intersex people?
It's very personal, I think, is the answer, because everyone's different, right? Like even with non-intersex people, some people want to change and be addressed by different things. But you know, in my case, I'm comfortable with she because I generally I feel more female, so I feel like a...
What is Z? I heard something about Z.
Yeah, well that's, you know, it's funny, my friends and I brainstormed during that time where I was looking really male, but I would correct people, but then I thought, well, if I say no, she, that's not really accurate either. We were like, we need a third gender pronoun, you know, really for people who are living more exactly in the middle. So Z is the third gender pronoun.
Z.
Yeah.
So I could be like, oh my God, I had this, no, I had PETA on my show yesterday, and Z, honey, Z said.
Z was awesome. And some people use that, and I wondered if at some point I might do that. Like,
what about him, her? How do you do that one?
They do here, and it's H-I-R, but it's pronounced here. I think the pronunciation's a little bit odd, but that's, and some people are doing this or living with this already. Like, I haven't taken that step yet because it's just kind of hard to make everyone do that, you know, because we're so used to, but
here and Z. Okay, tell everybody, because I know the difference, I'm very well versed, but tell everyone the difference between intersex and transsexual or cross-dressing.
Very
transgender. Transsexual is actually not the right word. Transgendered. Intersex.
It's basically intersex people are born, you know, in bodies that are different. So that's pretty basically, that it's kind of simple. You're born this way, you have no choice about it. Yeah, it's something that happens naturally. And later you might identify as male or female or somewhere in the middle, you know, whatever works for you. Transgendered are people who are born with regular male or female bodies, but they don't feel like the sex that their body is. So they decide later, as in adulthood or even, you know, adolescence and stuff now, that they want to be the quote-unquote opposite sex.
Because there's also possibly something hormonal with them too that is
well, you know, what's interesting is some people, like I know someone who was always like a big tomboy and then thought about transitioning to become a man and then realized when she went to doctors that she had actually been an intersex man, that they had changed into a female.
You know what I like about the whole intersex, I'm going to say movement, but existence, is that I feel it is a positive for the gay community because it is now proving that there are scientific, biological changes, you know, differences, and it's not just, oh, this is a choice. It's like, no, I have no choice.
Right, you know? And it's like, you know, there are some intersex people who identify as straight, so it's not totally the same thing, but I agree with you that it shows there's a spectrum.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, it's not so black and white.
Exactly.
Like, everyone wants to think that it's really black and white, but actually, like, male and female aren't opposite. Like, you don't have, the baby is not male in the womb or female in the womb. Like, they all start female, and then they change into male, so we're more alike than people really realize.
Remember, if you see a redhead.
I like that. That's a good,
Down the block.
Can I talk about surgery a little bit? When I was a baby, my dad's a doctor, so he decided not to have the surgery. Most parents are pressured into doing it, and because they're not doctors, right, and the authority is telling them you need to do this to your child, they will listen to the doctor, you know, but everybody knows, like, that you really shouldn't do surgery unless you have to, right? So he decided not to do it, and I think the thing that's really important is that people have the choice. I mean, that's why I speak out about this, because when I found out, I thought I would meet other people like me, but what I met was all these people who had been so scarred, like psychologically and physically, you know, and then they were lied to because they do these surgeries, they pick what they, you know, want and then do it, and then tell the parents never to tell the child.
So they're struggling, and the child doesn't even know why.
Because they usually feel something a little different. They feel a little bit in between, a little more, and a lot of times, you know, they're asking their parents, or they're saying, like, I think I used to be a boy.
I think I'm saying anything. I think that's really important. Thank you for saying that, because the guest that you're going to meet next is someone that was in so much pain with being intersex and kind of not understanding everything, that Z actually tried to burn and cut his breast, or Z's breast, off. We'll be right back. Up next, we got a little fashion show with some top models. Have both male and female characteristics, and often their parents feel pressured to choose one gender for them at birth and to perform surgery on them so that they are one gender and raise them as that one gender. Trey's parents didn't get it right, because while they chose to raise Trey as a female, Trey has always felt male. Trey was born intersex. So at what age did you know that you were not a girl?
I mean, I always knew. You know, I think, well, growing up, you just feel like something's off. You always feel like something's wrong. You know, I was raised as Faith, and I never really identified with that.
Faith, that was your name?
Yeah, that was my name.
Well, Hida says that she has a large clitoris and a vagina. What is your biological makeup?
Genetically, I'm not really sure which one that I am, but I was raised as a girl. I know my condition is congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which is one of the most common conditions.
Is that an oversized clitoris as well?
It can be. For genetic males, it could be that they're born without it. For genetic females, like internally, I'm more female, but externally, it formed me to